Hi, my name is Dale McDonald. I'm the president of HydroShield, and first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your interest in HydroShield and for your business. We're here today to do a large HydroShield install. We're going to install this on a Yamaha 250. The large HydroShield for the Yamaha 250 comes with a 35-degree bracket. So the kits come fully enclosed with a HydroShield, your brackets, fastener kit, and very detailed instructions. And I would ask that you please read the instructions prior to installing the HydroShield, because it contains a lot of good information, especially around the alignment, which we'll go over, but reading it is a good idea. So within the kit comes the HydroShield hydrofoil, detailed instructions on how to mount the HydroShield. And again, I would recommend you reading the instructions first, because it tells you how to do the alignment. We're going to be installing for what's called power trim. That's the only instruction that comes with the large HydroShield, because 99.9% of all larger engines have power trim, which means you're going to trim the engine out at speed. It comes with the brackets, 35-degree brackets, as well as the fastener kit, as well as a keychain with our phone number and website in case you need to get a hold of us. And again, if you have any questions at all during your install, feel free to give us a call at any time. That's what we're here for. So for the first part of the assembly, after you read the instructions, is to mount the brackets onto the HydroShield. So how we do that is we take one of the carriage bolts, we thread it up through the bottom, and we turn it until it locks into the locking collar. We then put the bracket on top and then thread the nylock. Always make sure when you're working with the carriage bolts to keep pressure on the head of the carriage bolt. That'll prevent it from backing off and stripping out the internal locking collar. So then the first step of the install is to simply put the brackets onto the HydroShield. Then for the second carriage bolt, we thread that up through the bottom, twist it until it locks, maintain pressure on the head of the carriage bolt, and install the second nut lock. Then we repeat the same process for the second side. And what I recommend is don't cinch it down real tight, just snug it up so that the brackets still have a little bit of play in them. Then what we're going to do is we are going to slide it up onto the skeg. Now, let's point out this skeg. Most skegs generally will extend down about 3/4 of an inch. This skeg is even with the propeller, so that means we're going to have to drop the entire assembly down. Normally, when you mount the HydroShield, you can butt it right up to the bottom of the skeg, and the bottom of the skeg will rest on top of the HydroShield. That is if you have the normal 3/4 of an inch clearance. In this case, because it's even, we're going to drop the assembly down a little bit. So basically, to get the rough alignment, we're going to place the HydroShield on like this. Most of the time, it will not hold on to the skeg like this. We're fortunate that the skeg is thick enough that it's actually holding the brackets on, but normally you would want to put a clamp to hold it in place. So the first thing to do is just to slide it up on the skeg, make sure that the top leading edge of the brackets is behind the leading edge of the skeg. You do not want it to go forward. That creates a pinch point. You want it to be just behind. The lower part of the brackets can be ahead of the skeg. That's not a problem. So how we do the install for power trim is to think of you're taking your measurements from the ventilation plate forward and back down to this L bracket flange. But because this L bracket flange only extends about 3 inches, we have to put a straight edge. You can use a ruler, a straight edge. I actually like to use a level flipped on the side to extend the planing lines of these brackets. And then we're going to measure from the ventilation plate down to that straight edge to get our front measurement, which is our A measurement, and our back measurement, which is our D measurement. For power trim, we want our back measurement always to be 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch greater than the front measurement. So what I do is I put a level, because the bolts right here actually fit up into the I-beam of the level. So I find this is a great way to use a straight edge. So I just place it in here to where it's level. So our back measurement is 15.5. And our front measurement is 15. So we are spot on. Again, you want your back measurement between 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch greater than the front measurement. So we've got our measurements correct. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our checking measurement, which is from the back of the foil to the bottom of the propeller blade. You want to ensure that that measurement is no less than 1 7/8 inch. We're going to take our measurement. We're at 2 inches, which is good. We just want to make sure that it's not less than 1 7/8. That's the minimum clearance between the prop and the foil. Your measurement could be 2, 2.5, 2 3/4 inches, which is fine, just as long as it's not less than 1 7/8. Now that we've got the measurements all aligned, we're going to put a clamp to hold everything in place when we drill. So now that we've got our measurements correct and we've checked the minimum clearance between the trailing back edge of the foil and the bottom of the prop, we're going to drill our first hole. We always start with the back top aft hole first. And just drill slow. Your lower unit is made from cast aluminum, so you do not need to put very much pressure on it at all. And now we're going to take one of the machine trusses, put it through, and then tighten the nylock on the other side. You need to grab a Phillips screwdriver. So now that we have the first hole drilled, now we want to go and check our measurements again, because in case the foil got knocked out of alignment, by having the one hole in, we have a pivot point, which allows us to still adjust the foil. So we put our straight edge back on, make sure that it's sitting flush with the bolts, and that is absolutely perfect. Okay, once we get that measurement, then we again go back and check the measurement between the prop and the trailing edge of the foil, and that is 2 inches, so it's greater than 1 7/8, so we're good to go. Okay, so the measurement here is 15 inches. Measurement here is exactly 15.5, so that's perfect. Now, every motor is different, so these measurements are always going to be different depending on what your motor is. The main thing is you want your back measurement to be 1/2 inch greater than the front measurement. So once you get that aligned properly, which it is right now, then we go back and we double check the measurement between the sharp trailing edge of the foil that actually touches the tape measure and the prop. And we have got 2 inches, so that's perfect. So now we're going to drill the second hole. So this skeg has a slight bend in the bottom, and that actually is not a problem. If it was bent further up here, then we would want to get the skeg straightened, and you would need a professional to do that. You do not want to rebend a skeg yourself, especially you don't want to bend it with the foil on. But a small bend like this at the bottom is not going to be an issue at all. Some of that will straighten out between the brackets. Then we remove the clamp and we drill our third hole. Then we affix the third machine truss with the nylock. Now that everything is secure, we want to make sure that all the bolts are tightened. So we've already tightened the ones on the skeg. We're now going to do that on the foil. Again, apply pressure to the top of the carriage bolts and tighten. Okay, and now for the last part of the install, what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the excess threads on the skeg. That is critically important because if you leave the excess threads, you could create cavitation, which could erode your top end performance. So again, when you're doing the cutting of the threads, as well as when you're drilling the holes, we do recommend, both eye as well as ear protection. So that's the install for a large Hydro Shield for power trim. Again, 1/2 inch greater for your back measurement. That's being taken from the planing line of this L bracket. And always check the gap between the propeller and the sharp trailing edge of the foil. You want that to be a minimum of 1 7/8. And in all likelihood, it could be 2, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4. On some of the large stern drives, we've even seen up to 3, 3 1/4 inches, which is fine. We just don't want it to be less than 1 7/8 of an inch. So that's the install. If you have any questions at all, please visit us at www.hydro-shield.com, where we have instruction manuals as well as this video to be able to see how to do the install. And also on the back of your key ring, aside from our website, is our phone number, 302-650-4326. That's my personal cell. Feel free to give us a call at any time. We're here to help. And if you have any questions or require any clarifications on the instructions, we would really appreciate hearing from you before you drill. Thank you for your business and have a great time out on the water. Enjoy.